Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. This is John Craig, and you are with us for Walking in Spirit and Truth. And my wife and I, Sandi and myself, we pastor Life of Worship here in Amarillo, Texas, and been following and walking out the Torah for quite a long time. And we're finding all these huge discoveries, and a lot of these wonderful things are hidden within the scriptures. And we're so glad that we're able to come here and bring this to you on the Lamb Network platform, so that that you all can kind of go on this journey. We've been on a journey for the last few weeks. Hey, Linda. Hey, Joe. Hey, it's good to see you. Let's get Ezra-ing. Yeah, we've been on this journey, and we've been going through 4 Ezra, and you know what? We are already up through chapter 11, going into chapter 12. If we have time tonight, we may even jump into chapter 13. I don't know if we're going to get there. You know me, I'd like to go on all these different tangents and stuff, or maybe they just happen. I don't know. But anyway, it's all good. I've been learning a lot from it, and it's given me pause to think about the power of faith. Or emunah, faithfulness, loyalty, the power of faithfulness and loyalty. And then the second thing that is very powerful, and that is halakha, walking out the Torah, living the Torah. So in other words, what are the instructions? How do we apply it? How do we live it? And to the best of our abilities, while we are all in the diaspora, we're all out in the wilderness. We're all in Babylon. We're all in Egypt, and we're forsaking the ways of Egypt. We're forsaking the ways of Babylon, and we're coming out. And I think these are some of the last stages and preparations before the coming of our King, and I'm excited about that. So Life of Worship Ministries is here in Amarillo, Texas, and if you're ever in Amarillo, we would love for you to come by and join us for our Shabbat services. So our Torah portion begins at noon on Shabbat Central Time, and then we have our encounter service, which is at 3, where we have a time of praise, worship, ministry, and a message. And boy, if you haven't been checking out the Life of Worship channel, that's it, Life of Worship Ministries channel. In there, we have a playlist. And you'll want to go back to the playlist. So if you've ever missed any of these Ezra teachings under the Walking in Spirit and Truth playlist, you can go back to the very beginning and catch up and go through those and put those at 1.5 speed, 2 times speed. You'll get through them pretty quick and get caught up to where we are today. The other thing is, on there, we have had a series on the priestly calendar. So it starts out with Eddie Chumney, and he gives a background and a basis. Now, Eddie spent what he did here at our congregation. So he talks about who are the Essenes, the Nazarenes, what were the influences on the first century congregation, the restoration of the rod of Aaron that's inside the Ark of the Covenant. And then Pastor Sandi has been doing a tremendous study from that point, going back with the things that Eddie had taught and the other things that Eddie spent a week with us going through this whole idea of the restoration of the priesthood, what it means, its implications, and then how do we apply it in our lives today. I'm telling you, I mean, he brought like over 800 slides for us to go through. So well documented. Verses, textual documents, the understanding of the things that add to the scriptures, not replacing the scripture, but it gives a broaden what they found in the archaeology and in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and understanding the Qumran communities, the community of the Achad, as well as the Nazarenes, and their application of the people. And Sandi's gone through. She's talked about the disciples. She's talked about the ruling priesthood at the time of Yeshua. No wonder he overthrew the temples, because they were so corrupt. And in one sense, it makes you think, no wonder the temple was overthrown. So she goes into all of those details. She talks about stuff like Paul and what he did when he sailed to Troas, and how the counting of the days led to the Feast of First Fruits. And this last week, how we talked about how there's all these other feasts and they're separated by 50 days, 7 weeks, or like Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks is the first set. And then there's 2 other sets. And she went into the details about how those work out. And then we're like, okay, we're ready to do this. All right. Well, that's enough for that. I do want to say this. Those have been online with us, have been part of Life of Worship on our online community. I just want to say thank you so much for those who have been part of it, those that have given, those who have given offerings and tithes. We certainly appreciate that. We're still working through the bills for this month. So if you've not had the opportunity yet to jump over to our website, then I'm going to put it up here on the screen here in a moment, and you can get our website. And on our website, there'll be a donate tab, and you can either click or tap, and that will take you to our PayPal, where you can pay with if you want to give and donate through a debit card, credit card, or from your PayPal account to ours, or however you have it set up, you can do that. And we certainly appreciate your generous offerings. We have a number of people that join us and that are partnering with us in prayer, and many that have partnered with us financially, and some do both. We certainly appreciate that. But if you've never had the opportunity to give, go there. I'm going to put it up here. Here's our website, and go there and prayerfully take that to Yahweh and give a love offering, the best gift that you possibly can, that you could send our way. We'd certainly appreciate that, and that'll certainly help us out in this realm. That's all I'm going to say about that this evening, and I'll keep that scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Okay, let's get back to where we were. Now, remember where we were last week and how we were going through this whole image and the picture of the eagle, the 3-headed eagle. And we were starting that description about that and how this eagle had a whole bunch of wings. And also there's a description of its wings. There's a description of a certain amount of its feathers, how each wing represents a kingdom. Each feather represents a kingdom that would rise up. Some would have a larger rule and effect before that kingdom would be over, but then the next one would take its place, and the next one. And then it comes out of this voice that comes out of the body of the eagle that speaks. And then it has 3 heads. So after all the wings are lost, there's just like 4 wings left or something like that. And then these heads, there's 3 heads on the eagle, and they are like sleeping through all the other kingdoms. And then they wake up, and one of the heads is destroyed, and there's 2 that are left, and one destroys the other. So there's just one that's left, and the last one falls on his own sword, so to speak. And then out of this forest, out of the woods, comes this lion. And so I think that's about where we had left off this last time. And I thought that's very interesting to me when you think about this lion coming out. Well, what's the first thing that you think of when you think of a lion? Well, I think of Yeshua, the King of Kings. That's represented by even the constellation Aries. I think, is it Aries? I think that's right. That constellation is always been associated with the southern kingdom, Judah. Isn't that interesting? Well, this lion comes out of the woods, and the lion has begins to speak and rebuke. Now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go review with you real quickly about this lion, and which really relates to Daniel chapter 7. And so let's go back to this. So we talked about these 3 heads, and the 2 heads are battle each other out, and there's one that's left, and then the one devours one, and then the other one dies. And all right, so this next part is, and this is Ezra chapter 11, beginning with verse 37. This is for Ezra, or if you're using the King James with the Apocrypha version, it's 2 Esdras. And this is chapter 11, verse 37. And I beheld, and lo, as it were, a roaring lion chased out of the wood. Now, it's not like he was being chased by something. It's just the language that is being used. And hey, Nancy, good to see you. And it's running out of the wood. So you think about a lion that is just in attack mode. That's how I kind of look at it as. And I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle. So out of this lion comes a man's voice and to this eagle. And he says, "Hear." So Shema, "I will talk with you, and El Elyon shall say unto you." So, that could be good or bad. It's just like, what's being said? And I think we should take heed what the lion says to the eagle. Now, in the course of history, by the way, when we think about eagles, I think again about the heralds, what's on the shields of the different kingdoms of our history. I think about the eagle that's on various flags that are in certain nations in the world, and here is this eagle that has 3 heads, and this is what I picture. This picture that Ezra is talking about has ended up on the shields, on the crests, on the heralds, on the heraldry of many kingdoms, and so it makes sense that many kingdoms have been represented by it. And so we talked about these feathers that one by one they disappear, each one being a kingdom, each wing, multiple wings, 12 wings, each one being broken off as representing a kingdom that disappears. And so here we have this voice coming out of this lion, and who says, "Shema, I'm going to say something to you, you eagles," or "you remaining eagle." Shall we say that? Because when I think about a remaining eagle in the world today, I think about the most prominent remaining eagle, and that is the United States of America. Is it exactly the same as what Ezra is talking about? I don't know. But it is something that's worth pondering, because when we look at prophecy, we don't know what it really is until we've been there, right? And so, and always keep in mind, now I'm not trying to say and equate anything that I'm talking about as current events. However, there is resemblance to current events. And Ezra is seeing this 4 centuries before Messiah. Isn't that interesting? It's during, and you would call it that time just before, because he was in charge of rebuilding the second temple in Jerusalem. And it's, so it's just preceding perhaps that time of building, or maybe it's right after the building of the second temple, and what we call that intermediary period until we get to the renewed covenant, the Brit, the covenant that is made new again to us. So we have going on here, he says, "Now listen, and are you not it that remains of the 4 creatures?" And those 4 creatures are the same that Daniel saw, "whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them. And the 4th came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and power over the earth with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth, with much wicked oppression. And I just think about that. If you think, and I'm just using an analogy or metaphorically speaking, for example, how the United States, being the military power of the world, having the most military bases and naval bases strategically placed around the world, and how did they get there? They got there through oppression, by defeating their enemies. So, I mean, think about that. And we think about, the strength of the United States, and that might be a good thing. And I, after reading Ezra, and along with some other thoughts that I've had, kind of think of, if this is metaphorically be speaking of the United States, it is not putting the United States in a good light, because it's saying it's oppressive and yet we think we live under an illusion of freedom. But I'm going to go on. You can just ponder on those things. And it says, because it says, and had power over the world with great fearfulness. So a military power over the whole world. So there's a military dominance. And then with the United States dollar as the reserve currency, and being able to use that currency in order to force agendas that only the West want. So making, in other words, third world countries and other countries that are not in alignment with that philosophy or that way of ruling and reigning, but still forcing them to submit because of the power of using the United States dollar as a reserve currency. They can make countries do what they want them to do, because all they have to do is sanction them. All they have to do is say, okay, no more dollars for you. And all of a sudden, the local currencies then become Zimbabwe. And overnight, there's so much inflation that the people suffer. That's oppression, because the countries didn't want to do things the way the United States wanted them to do, or the Western nations that hold the reserve currencies like the US dollar and the euro. I think the yuan is in the reserve currency basket, but mainly being controlled by the petrodollar, and that's what holds the US dollar up. And now that alliance of the petrodollar nations is falling apart, so goes the currency, and so goes the nation. And so we see this end time beast, the last of the four living creatures, having its demise. And we're going to go into some things as there's the interpretation of it here shortly. Going on, it says, and over the whole compass of the earth, with much wicked oppression, and so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. So he's lived a long time on the earth with deceit. And you think about, well, how did the United States come into such prominence? Well, after World War II and the formation of NATO, the United States was placed as a number one nation. And in 1972, with the removal of the gold-backed currency, and we have the move to the petrodollar, that's of the workings of Henry Kissinger. I don't have a lot of good things to say about him. And now we've been dependent on that relationship with big oil. But going on, so they dwell upon the earth with deceit, oppression, with deceit. For the earth have you not judged with truth? Okay, think about the lies that come out of the narrative of this nation. And it says, for you have afflicted the meek, you have hurt the peaceable, you have loved liars and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and have cast down the walls of such as did you no harm. So if anybody crossed the United States, they either have invaded, or they, under economic pressures, they cause economies to crumble, literally. And where those countries did no harm to the United States, it's just they didn't want to go down the route of the United States. So, hey, Eddie and Tammy, hey, thanks for checking in with us today. So going on, verse 43, therefore is your wrongful dealing come up unto El Elyon, and your pride unto El Elyon has looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. So think about the abominations that have come out of the United States, out of Western Europe, and these abominations have filled the earth. And we think about the gender issues. We see the issues about marriage issues, the abuse of children, the human trafficking, the drugs, the media, the what comes out of Hollywood and the back alleys of Hollywood and all that sort of stuff. And think about those abominations. And it says, therefore, appear no more, you eagle. You eagle is what it says. Appear no more, you eagle, nor your horrible wings, nor your wicked feathers, nor your malicious heads, nor your hurtful claws, nor all your vain body, that all the earth may be refreshed and may return, being delivered from your violence, and that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her. So it's speaking about the demise of the final beast of the four beasts of Daniel. And this beast happens to be the eagle. And this eagle, it was very oppressing. And of all different things, when you think about all the kingdoms, all the wings that it had and all the feathers, this is the last of the kingdoms. So this is the inheritance. The very fact that we have an eagle on our heraldry of the United States with the feathers and with the wings and the arrows, and it just shows its military might. So it's very, very interesting, which reminds me of something else that is kind of brings together Matthew 24. And it says this, for just as the lightning, this is verse 27. Let's go to 26. No, let's go to 25. It says, behold, I have told you in advance. I've told you in advance. So this is Yeshua speaking to his disciples. If therefore they say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go forth, or behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe them. For just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes even to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, I want you to keep that image in your mind, because that's going to play out further on here in Ezra, if we can get there today. But then the next verse says, and in my version, it says, wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Well, that seems like that is so out of place. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So in verse 28, it says, wherever the corpse is, you know what that word is? That word is wherever there is calamity, downfall, or a fall, there the eagles will convene, will gather, they will convene. So what did we just look at? Well, we had a three-headed eagle, and so wherever the calamity is, so what do eagles do? There's a destruction of a kingdom. They rule and they oppress. They cause much death, and they're ruling and then they're reigning, and then they bring their flag and they put it in the sand. They put that flag there and prop it up. So where there's been a downfall, wherever there's been a calamity, wherever that is, then the eagle stakes that ground and convenes. Yeah. See, versions like the King James version says eagles. Mine says vultures, but the word, is it can be used both directions. And so I just think about this eagle, and yet and its power, and it's convened over the nations after defeating them. It'll defeat the nations militarily. It'll defeat the nations with a monetary system. And it makes me always think also about the beast kingdom that's coming. Maybe that's the final beast, and which will also ultimately be defeated, and it's going to rule with deceit. Think about the narratives that we've had, and the narratives that keep going on, and people keep hearing the news and all that sort of stuff. People don't even know what to believe anymore. You say, because it keeps echoing so many different times, that if they say a falsehood so many times, that they're going to believe that falsehood as a truth. And so ruling and reigning with the deceit, ruling and reigning with abominations, with oppression, and even to nations that did no harm. And so let's move on. I don't want to, but at the end of even the final beast, there is hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her, so that there's still people on earth that say, oh, thank goodness that beast kingdom has come to an end, and judgment's coming. So just think about this: when the wages aren't keeping up with the inflation, and because that's also an economic warfare against even the people where you live. If you're in the United States or Canada or Europe, and you're seeing inflation um, outrun your salary, uh, that is oppression that this ruling beast is doing. He's ruling over us and oppressing even its own people, let alone people outside of this eagle's rule. So we all are looking for the hope of this judgment, that the eagle will be judged. This beast kingdom will be judged. And it goes on. It says, and it came to pass, so while the lion spoke these words unto the eagle, I saw. And so here's Ezra. He's in this middle of this vision, and he says, and I saw the four wings that remained appeared no more, and the two went into it, talking about these two feathers, and set themselves up to reign, and their kingdom was small and full of uproar. So it's like the eagle is just on its last legs. There's still a couple wings left, or maybe even a couple feathers, depending on how it was described earlier. And I saw, and behold, they appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle, and here's the interesting thing, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. Then awakened I out of the trouble and trance of my mind, and from great fear, and said unto my spirit. So here is this, at the very last part of the vision. So this eagle, he's looking at the whole body of the eagle, and it bursts into flames and is burned. And so that the earth was in great fear. So now think about this, and I'm thinking, man, that sounds like thermo-nuclear war, doesn't it? This thermo-nuclear war, and then he wakes up, right? Have you ever had one of those dreams where it's so powerful and it's so strong that it's like, and then you wake up because there's something in that dream that the Father's wanting to speak to you about. And he's in this dream, he's in this trance of his mind, and he has this great fear. And he says, and he said, and said unto my spirit, lo, this have you done unto me, in that you search out the ways of El Elyon. And he's like, okay, you want to search out the ways, and it literally takes his breath away. And he goes on to say this is just like Daniel over in 7:28. He says, yet I am weary in my mind and very weak in my spirit, or in my ruach, and little strength is there in me, for the great fear wherewith I was afflicted this night. So that image, not only of the oppression and the power and all of that of these kingdoms, but ultimately how this big kingdom just is burnt and the whole earth is shaken in fear. And you think, even when I think, and it hit him to the core, to where you think most of us have grown up with the fear of nuclear war, and how even in some of our schools we used to have those drills where if there was a nuclear blast, how are we supposed to get out of our chairs and get under our desks? I mean, like, what would that do? But they had drills like that, and back in the 50s and the 60s, and there was a time of that Cold War where you never knew exactly, if the Soviet Union, the big boogeyman, that's what we were told, the big boogeyman would come against the United States. Of course, in 1963, under John F. Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis, they were just within an hour, within 30 minutes, I think, of thermonuclear war. But John F. Kennedy had the presence of mind to be able to stop and talk to Khrushchev, and they backed down. So, and you look at the things going on in the world today, and it's like how quickly it can happen. Yeah, like Dmitri Duduman said, in 1 hour it will burn. So it's interesting how these prophetic words rhyme. Isn't that true? And he cries out, he beseeches El Elyon, and he says that he will comfort me unto the end. And I said, Yahweh Adonai, if I have found grace before your sight, and I am justified with you before many others, and if my prayer indeed come up before your face, comfort me then, and show me, your servant, the interpretation and plain difference of this fearful vision, that you may perfectly comfort my soul. I mean, that would be unsettling. And he's like, okay, at least tell me what I'm seeing, because I'm traumatized by it. Literally, he's traumatized by it. And he says this interesting phrase, and maybe this is a phrase that we should all have. And the humility of Ezra. Remember, he's a priest in the lineage of Zadok, which is in the lineage of Phineas, and Eleazar and Aaron. And he says, for you have judged me worthy to show me the last times. So you think about a man that's 400 years before the time of Messiah that is seeing the times that we're living in, like John did, right? And he says, and then it says, he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. So here comes the interpretation. And we're going to break that down for you in the following verses here, beginning with verse 11 of chapter 12 of 2 Esdras, if you're looking at the King James Version with the Apocrypha, or if you got the Sefer Bible, it's in 4 Ezra. And it says, the eagle whom you saw come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of your brother Daniel. Okay, pretty. And where did the eagle come up from? From the sea. Well, the sea is idiomatic language for the nations or many, many peoples. So this is where the eagle comes up out of. Well, I think about the United States and Canada. Who populates us? A lot of nations populate us. We have the indigenous tribe. We call them the indigenous tribes, but we have the first people that were here in North America, and then we had all the settlers that came and flooded the nation afterwards. Even today, where we've got tens of thousands crossing the borders every week. So this eagle, whom you saw come up from the sea, is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of your brother Daniel, but it was not expounded to him. So Daniel, if you think about that over in Daniel chapter 7, he got to see this beast, but he didn't get to see the interpretation. And because he didn't get to see the interpretation, but he still, the same result of how it affected him in his body, physically, was the same as what Ezra felt. Ezra had the same experience, but Ezra gets the interpretation. And one of the things that happened to Daniel is Daniel was told to seal these things up. No one's going to get to see it. Well, get this: the Dead Sea Scrolls were sealed up until they are found in 1947, 1947, 1949, somewhere along there, late 1940s. And then out of that, it's taken them a long time for the experts to lay it all out and to put those fragments of those scrolls and put them together. And 1947, thanks. And so when we have that, put together, and then we have archaeologists, we've got people that master the ancient languages of the Aramaic and of the the Paleo-Hebrew as well as the Hebrew that was used in the Second Temple period. We do see all of those things, and they've all come together, and they're being unsealed for us. It's because Daniel was told that they would be sealed up until the time of the end. And Daniel 7:28, by the way, said, "At this point, the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming me, and my face grew pale, but I kept the matter unto myself." And I believe it's at the end of Daniel where it says to seal these things up. Chapter 12, verse 9, and he said, "Go your way, Daniel, for these words are concealed and sealed up until the end time." Well, now we're looking at for Ezra in 2023, or coming up on 2024 on the Gregorian calendar. I mean, it's a lot of time has passed. And so verse 12, "But it was not expounded unto him. Therefore now I declare it unto you. Behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon the earth, and it shall be feared above all the kingdoms that were before it. And in the same shall 12 kings reign, and one after another." So now it's going through these 12 kings that are represented by the 12 wings. And as for the voice which you heard speak, that you saw not come out from the heads, but from the midst of the body, this is the interpretation: that after the time of that kingdom, there shall arise great strivings, and it shall stand in peril of failing. Nevertheless, it shall not fail, but shall be restored again to his beginning. So it seems like there's this kingdom that rises up that looks like it's about to fail, but then it's restored. Have we seen that kingdom yet? Have we seen a kingdom that looks like is about completely broken down, and then it's restored after being in the peril of failing? It says, "Nevertheless, it shall not then fall, but shall be restored again to his beginning." So just as strong as it was when it started. "And whereas you saw the 8 small under feathers sticking to her wings, these are the interpretations. That's in them there shall arise 8 kings, whose times shall be small and their years swift, and 2 of them shall perish, and in the middle approaching it 4 will be kept until their end begin to approach, but 2 shall be kept unto the end. And whereas you saw the 3 heads resting," this is the interpretations. I mean, so these are the sleeping heads of the eagle. "In the last days shall El Elyon raise up 3 kingdoms, and renew many things therein, and they shall have the dominion of the earth, and of those that dwell therein, with much oppression above all those that were before them, and therefore they are called the heads of the eagles." So therefore they're called the heads of the eagles. So that makes me think the Rosh, in other words, all these other kingdoms that were before them that are demonstrated in the feathers and the wings are not as great as these 3 heads. "And renew many things therein, and they shall have dominion of the earth, and of those that dwell therein, with much oppression above all those that were before them. And these are called the heads of the eagle. And these are they that shall accomplish his wickedness, and that shall finish his last end." So I always thought we were the good guys. Think about that. But maybe every country, raises their kids in that country to say, well, we're the good guys. Maybe not the Generation Z or whatever generation is right around us now. They've been taught to hate our country, but the United States. But many of us were taught that we were the good guys. And yet we look at our nation and we say, well, maybe we abandoned those roots and we're not the good guys anymore. But let's go on. And then it says, "Whereas you saw the great head appeared no more, and it signifies that one of them shall die upon his bed, and yet with pain. For the 2 that remain shall be slain with the sword, for the sword of the one will devour the other, but at the last head shall fall through the sword himself. And whereas you saw 2 feathers under the wings passing over the head, that in the right side it signifies that those are they whom El Elyon has kept unto their end, and this is the small kingdom and full of trouble, as you saw. So, all right, so that's kind of the end there. And I haven't figured out those two feathers yet. I'm wondering if those two feathers represent, and it says full of trouble. I'm wondering if that's the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, as they've endured all these other tyrannies that have been around the world, and so here we are. So that's what I'm thinking. If you've got some ideas, you can pass them on to me. I'd love to hear them. And I'm thinking, okay, are those heads? Do those represent maybe perhaps the like the Third Reich, which was the first to die? It says, died upon his bed, and yet with pain. And then it says, for the two that remain shall be slain with the sword. And so the sword of one shall devour the other, but the last, he shall fall through the sword himself. So it's almost like, does he kill, one gets killed off, but in the very end, the last head commits like national suicide. You know, I mean, kills its own nation. I don't know. It's just some thoughts. I need more interpretation to understand the interpretation. Then we go on and it says, so verse 30, it signifies that these are they whom El Elyon has kept until their end. This is the small kingdom and full of trouble, as you saw. And so the small kingdom would be perhaps Israel, and that has, the northern kingdom, southern kingdom. Maybe I think that fits. It seems to fit. And it's full of trouble. And I mean, think about Israel today. It's just full of trouble. And the lion whom you saw rising up out of the wood and roaring and speaking to the eagle and rebuking her for her unrighteousness with all the words which you have heard. So, and it goes on, it says, this is the anointed which El Elyon has kept for them and for their wickedness unto the end. He shall reprove them. He shall upbraid them with their cruelty. I mean, think about the cruelty. Some of the cruelty that I heard in terms of like the waterboarding, that the torture that's used by three-letter agencies. I think it's very interesting when you think about what's been done to the nations we've conquered, and in order to get more information, and they don't do it with any type of humanity. It's cruel. Anyway, that's just a thought. And in verse 33, for he shall set them before him alive in judgment, and shall rebuke them and correct them. So who we were raised to believe to be the good guys now aren't the good guys, and because they're not the good guys, then they're rebuked and they're corrected by the lion, the anointed one. And it says, for the rest of my people shall he deliver with mercy. And I'm thinking, what's it mean to be delivered with mercy? Well, I'm thinking about the gathering of Yah's people from the four corners of the earth that have just been in the nations, and he's going to deliver them. Well, where's he going to deliver them to? That's why I'm thinking this is talking about the Exodus, the greater Exodus. And those that have been pressed upon my borders, and he shall make them joyful until the coming of the day of judgment. So it's like there's a gathering. So those that are within, whether they're within the borders or they're coming to the borders of the land, and then they're going to be there until the day of judgment. Well, the day of judgment, that judgment seat is on the eighth great day, right? The advent of the eighth great day. So they live with great joy until the coming of that day, where have I spoken to you from the beginning. This is the dream that you saw, and these are the interpretations. You only. So Ezra he's getting this word. You only. And so I just think that's very interesting that he says, you only have gotten this interpretation and this vision, and have been made to know the secret of El Elyon. Therefore, write all these things that you've seen in a sefer, in a Bible, in a book, in a scroll, and hide them and teach them. Now, get this. This is the difference between Ezra and Daniel. He says, I want you to hide these things in a scroll, but I want you to teach them. Well, who gets to teach them? It says, teach them to the wise of the people, whose hearts may comprehend and keep these secrets. And wait for yourself yet 7 days more, that it may be showed you whatsoever pleases Elyon to declare unto you. And with that, he went his way. So remember, we're talking about the angel Uriel, who brought this interpretation of the dream to Daniel, or to Ezra. And Ezra is supposed to speak this now only to those that are wise. Well, who does the scripture say are those that are wise? It's those who follow Torah, who seek out Torah. They learn what the instructions are, and then they learn to do those instructions. Those are the wise ones, and whose hearts may comprehend and keep these secrets. So it's, I think there's a certain point in time that those hidden secrets are to be revealed, but they're only revealed. I mean, look who's watching us now. Those that might be following up with us in the archive. And out of all the different people that could be watching and could be listening and don't. And I'm not saying that, this is the only place you can come and get the wisdom and comprehend these things. And no, I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying is that those that are like us, we're the ones that we're being taught these things, and we're learning to comprehend these things. And so we're the ones that are being set apart for Yahweh to show us, in order that we might be preserved into the days that we're living in. Okay. And so then he says, wait here 7 more days. And so he does. And he's been in the field for 3 weeks, 2 weeks of fasting, 1 week of eating herbs and flowers. Now he's told to wait 7 more days. So that's going to be 28 days in the field, but he's going to continue eating the herbs and the flowers. That's going to be food to him. But get this, the people in the city, remember, he's in the field. He's outside the city. The people in the city, they're really alarmed by him being out there. They think that he's abandoning them. I mean, this is the only prophet that they have, the only representation of the priesthood that they have. This is the one that they want to consult with in order to have the wisdom of Yah, and he separated himself from them. And think about this, how many Shabbats have passed? And he's not there. And we look to those that study out the word. Why do we join together in the Torah portions? Why do we study out the word? It's because we want to be encouraged by it. And they're in dismay. In fact, they come to him from the least to the greatest, and they said, what have we offended you? And what evil have we done against you that you forsake us and sit here in this place? I mean, they're pretty upset. And for all the prophets, of all the prophets, you only are left. You're the only one left to us. That's what he's saying. As a cluster of the vintage. So a vintage. So you think about all the grapevines in a vineyard, and there's just one cluster left, and Ezra is it. Or as a candle in a dark place, or as a haven, or a ship preserved from the tempest. So one ship left in the haven because the rest in the harbor, because everybody else sailed and they got caught up in the storms. And so they think they've done something wrong to him. And even to the point of how much better had it been for us if we also had been burned in the midst of Zion. I mean, they're pretty distraught. Isn't it amazing? I think about all the different people that are out there that stopped fellowshipping. They stop attending the assembling of themselves together as they see the day drawing near. And when there's been resources around, will they regret when those resources are no longer available? If congregations like Life of Worship, for example, and others that are out there like Life of Worship that aren't around any longer, will they be distraught because they just presumed it would always be there? And if they needed to have the insight, the wisdom, the services of, or whatever, that it would be there in their time of need, and that it might not be there. And these people are recognizing that with Ezra gone, it's like we feel like we might as well not even be alive. That's pretty intense, and it's of great honor to Ezra that they would do that. And it says, and they wept with a loud voice. Wow, that we would honor the priests, the prophets, the pastors, the teachers, the apostles, in a way like that. If something were to happen to them, if they were out of reach, that we would literally grieve that they'd be not around. But here's Ezra, that he's just the perfect priest. Honestly, he's just the perfect guy to this. And I'm not talking like a priest, like a Catholic priest or something like that. Or I'm talking about, this priest in the line of Aaron. And he says, be of good comfort, O Israel, and be not heavy, you house of Yaakov, for El Elyon has you in remembrance, and El has not forgotten you in temptation. As for me, I've not forsaken you neither, and am I departed from you? But I've come into this place to pray for the desolation of Zion. In other words, Zion is, the Zion, it's desolated, and I'm praying for her recovery, that I might seek mercy for the low estate of your sanctuary, so the temple. And now go your own home, every man, go home. And after these days will I come unto you. So the people went their way into the city as I commanded them. But I remained still in the field 7 days, as the angel commanded me, and did eat only those days of the flowers of the field, and had my meat of the herbs. So he had his meals of the herbs. Wow. Well, now that brings us to the end of chapter 12. It's going to bring us to chapter 13. So here's a highlight of chapter 13. And at the end of 7 days, he has another dream. There's a man that comes out. It says, well, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that a man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And he turned his countenance to look. All the things trembled that were seen under him. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, ... And that's what's going to happen. Next time when we gather, we'll talk about the words that come out of this man that rises from the sea, that whenever that he's got the thousands of heaven with him. Woohoo! But out of his mouth comes some powerful results. Let's just put it that way. We're going to talk about that next time. So make sure you stay with us here on Walking in Spirit and Truth here on the lambnetwork.tv. Or you can, if you missed it, always go back to our Life of Worship Ministries YouTube channel, and you'll be able to follow along with all of this in the Ezra series. We're all the way up to chapter 13, trying to go back through and put titles on every one that we've done. So that way you can say, okay, yeah, that was the one about this one, whatever. And so I got last week's title in there, and there's another one that I have in there. We'll get this one named. But so living in the time we're living, well, how much time do we have left? Well, let me ask you this. Do y'all remember the Deagle report? As I got a couple minutes, I can say this. Do you remember the Deagle report? How back in 2020 and even before that, how it was talking about in 2025 that the population of the United States would be reduced by a huge percentage. At one point in time, I thought it said like 90%. And then I came across a document that was posted on stevequail.com earlier over the weekend, and it said maybe 68% reduction in population. Well, at that point in time, a reduction of 350 million people would bring it down quite a bit. I'm thinking to about 120 million people, but just think about, and what is the Deagle report? Well, this is the report that's put out. I think the guy that does the Deagle report, was part of the Rand Corporation or one of those big think tanks. And they use the populations every year in order to base gross domestic product or expected gross domestic product. And out of the gross domestic product, they're figuring what type of taxes would be coming in, how much military spending there would be, social spending, welfare spending, you name it, whatever the government does for the running of the government. It's out of this Deagle report is how they could project what they would be needing for the coming years, or 5 years off what it would be. Well, in the Deagle report in 2025, there's a major reduction in population. Well, we're coming up on 2024. That means there's 1 year left before, if they're right, if for some reason they know that there's some release of a bioweapon, if there's some type of war coming upon us, some type of economic travesty where people will die because they won't have medical technology working or prescription medication or anything like that. This is, we have 1 year left, guys. So this is maybe the Calabria event as well, some type of geological event, and there's a destruction that accompanies. Now, the United States is listed among the top ones, along with Germany and Great Britain. So we have 1 year left. So it makes me think, what is going to be happening in 2024 if their projections are correct and things aren't reversed or delayed? What's going to be happening in 2024? Well, reading along here in Ezra, we can see with the rise of these, we can see how powerful that would be. Well, I've got to go. So until next time, shalom, shalom. Remember us up at Life of Worship, Amarillo.org, and donate if you can. We certainly appreciate that. We'll see you next time.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hugie.